From the crack of dawn to dusk, our boy is on a mission. At 7 a.m., he's out running 10 kilometers in the rain, like he's auditioning for a sports drink commercial. By noon, he's going all out, throwing 500 head strikes like he's got beef with a punching bag. Then, at 5 p.m., he's hitting the gym, knocking out 10 sets of bench presses, squats, and deadlifts. His muscles are probably staging a protest, but our MC doesn't care. 14 days of this madness, and he finally snaps. He storms into his boss's office, slaps down his resignation letter, and leaves without a word. Someone once asked him if he had lost his mind. He thinks now maybe it would be better if he had. After all, sanity seems more like a nuisance these days. His eyes fall on a status window that ominously flashes. The door to the end of days is opening soon. The universe is not subtle with its hints. The message recommends some last-minute prepping, strength training, cardio, and kendo. Because why not? If the world's ending, you might as well be ripped. The countdown ticks ominously from 5 seconds to 0, making his heart race like he's at the starting line of a marathon. Flashback to 15 days ago, and it was a wild day in Gyeongju. Phones everywhere start blaring with a disaster alert, talking about monsters near Inwang Mountain and suggesting, ever so politely, that people evacuate immediately. Panic hit the streets like a bad plot twist. A student, thinking it might be a prank or some weird social experiment, gets another alert, this time about monsters near Sorak Mountain. Because why not spread the joy? More notifications follow. It's like the monsters got an invite to a global party, but just when it seems it can't get worse, another notification pops up. Monsters have appeared, not a joke? Thanks for the clarification, because people were really starting to doubt this wasn't an April Fool's prank gone too far. A streamer named Sarkarella is live on the scene, hiding behind a tree like he's in the world's worst nature documentary. He's filming a giant figure while his voice trembles like a tuning fork. Comments roll in, half of them roasting him. Someone suggests he play red light, green light with the monster. And then there's a classic comment, "This is why men die faster." But suddenly, one comment stands out, pointing out that the monster is moving. The chat lights up with warnings, but the streamer dismisses them until a growl echoes from right behind him. Cue the collective scream from everyone watching. Our MC nearly drops his phone when it screams too, startling him more than his morning alarm. He squints at the screen, wondering why this video looks way too real to be CGI. Walking through a crowded square, he sees that everyone else seems glued to their phones, reading the same disaster alerts. He mutters to himself, "What's happening today?" He's got enough on his plate without adding monsters into the mix. Making a living is hard enough as it is. As he walks, something catches his eye. A goblin, shackled and panting like it's just escaped from a dungeon. He freezes, feeling a chill crawl down his spine. Should he run? He mutters something about it being the day the math teacher comes, hoping the goblin understands human awkwardness. But instead of attacking, the goblin gives him this look. You know, the one, the help me eyes. It's like a stray puppy, only, way uglier and with a shackle on its leg. Our boy feels torn. A monster with puppy eyes? That's emotional blackmail right there. He mentally fights with himself, reminding himself he's human, and it's a monster. But then, the goblin pulls out a tiny photo of its family and wipes its tears with a handkerchief. Seriously, what's next? A sob story about how it just wants to see its goblin kids graduate? Hoyoung's brain short-circuited for a second. This had to be a joke, right? Still, he decided to help. And just like that, he's holding a small pouch with a shiny golden ball inside. A system window pops up, reading Silver Goblin Pill. The description says, once consumed, one will obtain, and leaves it at that. Cliffhanger much? He stares at the pouch, wondering what on earth just happened. Who even eats something as suspicious as this? He reaches out to the system message, half expecting it to be solid, but his finger passes through like it's a hologram. Before he can ponder more, a news anchor's voice blares from a nearby TV, talking about large towers appearing all over the world. And the army that went inside lost contact with the outside world. Great, just what he needed, more apocalyptic news. He stands there, staring at the TV, a million thoughts racing through his head. Just then, a loud explosion shakes the ground, rattling the windows. It's not every day you get to see a Tower of Doom live on TV. Chaos explodes everywhere. People are running, screaming, doing everything but staying calm. TV channels are in full-blown panic mode. In Korea, a massive tower has just popped up out of nowhere. Meanwhile, Hoyoung stands there, fists clenched, eyes glued to the tower outside. The status window is still yammering about the silver goblin pill. He's hesitating but knows he's got to do something. So, he swallows the pill, thinking, well, if this kills me, at least I won't have to pay off my student loans. Suddenly, he feels a strange sensation spread through his body. His eyeballs dart around, and a status window pops up, announcing he's unlocked the Sage's status window. Fancy. It claims to provide the highest survival rate in this chaos. A blue light shines, and out of nowhere, a book materializes in his hands. He opens it, and a blinding flash surrounds him. The book merges into another status window titled Guide, announcing that the world's countdown to doomsday is officially ticking. With 15 days to go, it advises him to start some serious strength training, because apparently push-ups are the answer to the apocalypse. Fast forward to now, and our boy is staring at the status window, which reads, "The door of the end has opened," and he's suddenly in a forest. Not quite what he pictured the end of days to look like. He glances at the sword slung behind him. The status window kindly labels it Blunt Sword. Well, that's reassuring. More windows pop up, informing him that the game has officially started and the tutorial is beginning. Because nothing says welcome to the apocalypse like a tutorial level. After an aptitude test, he's assigned the class Combat Swordsman. He's shocked. Another window instructs him to open the status window for more details. It's like trying to read the terms and conditions in a video game. Overwhelming and probably filled with important stuff he should pay attention to. He checks his profile, seeing he's a level 1 combat swordsman with basic swordsmanship skills and access to the Sage's status window. His HP is full and he's got 10 MP. No points to allocate yet. He swings his sword, getting a feel for this new reality. Apparently, he has to survive in the forest for an hour or find an exit. Seems like a fair trade for a tutorial. The Sage's status window pops up, offering him a survival guide. It suggests he use all 60 minutes to hunt monsters, because apparently going for the exit is for quitters. He realizes the window knew this would happen, which is either comforting or creepy. Deciding to follow the guide, he ventures deeper into the forest. Soon enough, he spots movement. A small, one-horned raccoon. Cute, but it's still a monster. The raccoon growls and leaps at him, but Hoyoung, with his newly acquired reflexes, strikes it down. He gains some experience points, which is a nice bonus. He notes that his basic swordsmanship consumes 2 MP per use. With only 10 MP, he can swing his sword with skill 5 times before running dry. Efficient hunting is key. He slashes through more raccoons, thinking of basic swordsmanship. After the last one falls, he levels up to 2, regaining his HP and MP. He now has 2 points to spend, which is like getting a bonus stats in a game. Just when he's feeling good about himself, a new status window appears, explaining the weight of knowledge. Having the Sage's status window means he'll level up slower than others. Great. He gets an overpowered tool and they hit him with a penalty. Frustrated, he checks his status again. Everything looks the same except for one thing: he still has points. He thinks hard, realizing that if he plays this right, it's not a penalty at all. It could be a game-breaking ability in disguise. Hoyoung was in the thick of it, swinging his sword with wild determination. The raccoons stood no chance against his fierce slashes, and one by one, they fell. His eyes flickered toward the floating status windows that popped up in front of him. A rush of excitement surged through him. He'd gained experience points and leveled up to 2. But before he could even finish the thought, the windows vanished into thin air, leaving him with a furrowed brow. His stats were back to level 1 as he had expected. However, the silver lining was that his remaining points were steadily increasing. It dawned on him that the more he leveled up, the more experience points he would need for the next level. This sparked an idea. Maybe it'd be smarter to boost his stats directly instead of grinding levels the old-fashioned way. Lost in thought, he contemplated his next move. His gaze shifted over his available options: stamina, strength, agility, and sensitivity. Strength and agility seemed like the go-to choices for a combat swordsman. More power for attacks and faster reflexes to dodge blows. But our boy had a different idea. He decided to boost his sensitivity stat by 4, and a new status window popped up to confirm his progress. It's not every day you see someone beefing up sensitivity, but hey, even swordsmen need to feel things, right? With his plan in motion, Hoyoung kept on slicing through the one-horned raccoons. They were just tutorial monsters, after all, and they were practically folding under his blade with the default stats. Glancing at the status window, He noted he had a full 60-minute tutorial to slay as many of these critters as possible. The real challenge wasn't defeating them. It was finding enough of them within the time limit. Luckily, with his sensitivity cranked up to 20, spotting them became a breeze. RMC was feeling pretty good about himself, almost giddy. He thought he could sense a sort of chi, which was a fancy way of saying, "I'm awesome." But just as he was riding that high, a dark energy loomed behind him. The joy vanished as quickly as it came. A notification informed him that he defeated all the monsters and triggered a hidden quest. Great, because things were going way too smoothly, right? A roar ripped through the air as a giant, red aura-covered monster emerged. A level 2 one-horned raccoon alpha. Hoyoung felt a wave of dread. This was no ordinary raccoon. It was the boss. The alpha lunged at him with alarming speed, and our MC barely managed to dodge in time, heart pounding in his chest. The ground shook with the beast's landing, and Hoyoung realized he was in for a real fight. The raccoon charged again, and with a determined swing of his sword, Hoyoung managed to slice through it. Relief washed over him. This was doable. The status window confirmed his victory. The boss was down, the hidden quest was cleared, and he even earned some gold. Not bad for a day's work. Breathing heavily, he looked at the raccoon alpha's lifeless body, pride swelling as he noticed he'd hit level 7. The window informed him that he had completed the tutorial. He hadn't expected the hour to stretch so long, but it was finally over. Or was it? Suddenly, he found himself in a different place altogether, surrounded by a crowd of confused people. A voice crackled through a speaker, welcoming them and announcing their successful completion of the tutorial. The crowd hung on every word as the voice continued, explaining they were now in the lobby of the tower, specifically the C2567 region. Hoyoung's mind raced as he counted 14 men and 11 women. Did all these folks finish the tutorial too? Behind him, someone muttered about being in another place again, while a man demanded to be sent home. The scene was utter chaos. People crying for their moms and insisting it was all a dream. It was like a bad episode of a reality show. Hoyoung understood their panic. The entire world had flipped on its head in one day. He clenched his fist, telling himself to stay calm and focus on survival. Then, a woman's voice cut through the noise, asking where they were. The answer came from a mysterious voice, explaining they were in the Tower of the End. As if this day couldn't get any weirder, she looked down to see a rabbit-like creature that identified itself as Kumkum, a level 55, and the lower floor manager. Apparently, the tower had its own HR department, complete with cute but deadly mascots. Disbelief spread through the crowd as someone suggested it was a kid in a rabbit suit, while another person questioned if this creature was responsible for their current predicament. Kumkum took all this in stride, thinking their reactions were perfectly normal. When someone asked what they were supposed to do now that the world was ending, Kumkum responded with a sinister chuckle, informing them that they'd all be playing a game with their lives on the line. Because, that's just what you want to hear after surviving a life-threatening tutorial. The crowd erupted into chaos, but Hoyoung, fighting to keep his composure, asked if they could return to their normal lives by reaching the tower's top. Kumkum, with a mischievous wink, said it didn't know. Thanks for the comforting words, Kumkum. Frustrated, Hoyoung pressed on, asking what the point of climbing the tower was. Turning its back, the creature cryptically stated that some things didn't need meaning and warned that only death awaited those who didn't climb. A hush fell over the crowd at that ominous declaration. Kumkum casually mentioned that many people had already perished in the tutorial. Shock hit Hoyoung like a ton of bricks. He hadn't considered that. It was just the tutorial, but it seemed many hadn't made it through. Faces of strangers flashed in his mind, and despair gripped him. Kumkum then asked if anyone was willing to kill it, promising a special reward. Our MC's mind raced. Was this a trap? Despite Kumkum's cute appearance, it was still level 55. He decided to play it safe and watch how this unfolded. A status window advised him to help Kumkum get home, leaving Hoyoung conflicted. Meanwhile, a brave, or perhaps foolish, man stepped forward, volunteering to kill Kumkum, claiming that if it wanted to die so badly, he'd gladly help. Our boy felt a pang of regret. He was too late to act. The man charged at the rabbit, ready to deliver a mighty blow. But with surprising agility, Kumkum landed a powerful punch to his face, sending him flying. And there it was, the first lesson of the day. Don't mess with the cute ones. They punch back. The crowd was stunned into silence. Kumkum sarcastically apologized for the accidental counterattack, and panic spread like wildfire. People screamed and ran in every direction, shouting about the man's untimely demise. Hoyoung, rooted to the spot, was consumed with fear. That could have been him. Kumkum, reverting to its original form, tried to reassure everyone, laughing off the incident as a simple mistake. Sure, like accidentally sending someone into orbit was a minor slip-up. The status window reappeared, urging Hoyoung to help the rabbit get home. Doubt gnawed at him. Was the guide trying to deceive him? This was not what he had signed up for. But then again, who could say what was real or fake in a tower with killer rabbits? Kumkum, ever the charmer, decided to keep the party going by casually asking if anyone wanted to help it clock out early. The room fell into an eerie silence, the kind that makes you wonder if you should have stayed in bed that morning. Hoyoung started to suspect that the guide had been playing tricks on him. Why would it lie? Suddenly, a new window titled Sage's Status Window appeared in front of him. Intrigued, he examined the options, Sage's Eye, which would let him see others' status windows, and Guide, to call for assistance at critical moments. Of course, the catch was that picking either would slow down his leveling compared to everyone else. Classic. Hoyoung pondered the Sage's Eye. As he glanced at Kumkum, the gears in his mind started turning. He opted for the Sage's Eye, and a grin spread across his face. It was as if a light bulb had gone off, and he finally understood the situation. Kumkum, playing the part of the innocent creature, claimed it just wanted to go home. Our boy raised his hand, volunteering to help, a surge of determination coursing through him. Maybe the guide hadn't been lying after all. Kumkum, quick to call him out, loudly announced Hoyoung's name and level. Not missing a beat, he declared that his level wasn't important when he was just trying to do a good deed. Kumkum, with a fierce look, agreed and urged him to get on with it. Just as things were heating up, a woman from earlier piped up, reminding Hoyoung of the danger they had just witnessed. A chorus of voices joined in, urging him not to do anything reckless. But with a calm resolve, he assured them he had a plan, leaving the woman speechless and the crowd uncertain. Facing Kumkum, he declared they were about to see something interesting, gripping his sword tightly. The air was thick with anticipation. Kumkum, now brimming with excitement, transformed and ready to punch. Hoyoung stood his ground, his eyes locked on the rabbit's fist as it approached with alarming speed. He remembered an earlier announcement about there being 25 people, but Kumkum had only mentioned 24. The omission of the level 55 monster had to be a psychological ploy to sow fear. As the punch drew near, the crowd collectively held its breath. In a split second, Hoyoung dodged and counterattacked. Using the Sage's Eye, he confirmed his suspicion. There were only 24 people here to begin with. A status window popped up near the body of the supposed dead man, revealing that it was merely a hologram created by Kumkum. Complimenting Hoyoung on his quick thinking, Kumkum showed its profile. Everything 0, level 55. It explained it wasn't its true form, just a hologram that vanished when damaged. The revelation left everyone stunned. With a final flourish, Kumkum disappeared, leaving behind a small blue-green ball labeled Stat Point 1 and a parting message for the courageous. May the odds be with them. The crowd buzzed with confusion and curiosity. A hologram? It had all been a fake? They murmured amongst themselves. A man approached Hoyoung, asking how he knew. He explained that he saw blood pass through Chai Yisol, who stood so close that she should have been drenched in it. Her eyes widened in realization as she checked herself. Hoyoung concluded it had all been a show, though he thought it best to make up an excuse. Before he could relish in his small victory, a red-haired man stepped forward, looking smug. The new guy had that "I'm the boss" vibe that nobody likes. He claimed it was a waste for Hoyoung to have the ball, insisting he just got lucky. Kim Seyoung, a level 4 player with an ego to match, asserted he would have stepped up if he'd noticed sooner. Hoyoung raised an eyebrow at the waste comment. Seyoung, with a smirk, replied that still being level 1 either made him weak or a coward who ran away. He suggested Hoyoung hand over the ball for the sake of mankind, which sounded like a great slogan for a villain in a superhero movie. Hoyoung, gripping the ball tightly, felt a surge of defiance. Breaking the ball in front of Seyoung, he declared that yielding wasn't his thing, earning himself a stat point and leaving Seyoung fuming. Seyoung accused him of greed and trying to save face, but Hoyoung, trying to keep calm, thought from experience that the wisest thing to do was to avoid people like him. Yet he wondered how long he could maintain this approach. An announcement interrupted their showdown. stating that their starting gold would be distributed. It explained that gold could be used in the shop, with additional gold based on monsters hunted during the tutorial. Kim Se-young, not missing a chance to be smug, sneered at Ho-young, telling him to consider himself lucky. The announcement continued, revealing the highest starting gold was 7,400. Shockwaves rippled through the crowd. Se-young cursed his measly 1,300 gold, while another level 4 player, Kim Jun-song, marveled at the top player's fortune, having earned 1,500 gold. Ho-young, holding a hefty 7,400 gold, thought back to the grueling effort it took to kill those raccoons, realizing he was the top player. But he kept that little nugget of info to himself. No need to stir the pot further. A window popped up, announcing the opening of the shop. Ho-young weighed his options. Gold could be used to buy items, level up skills, or increase stats. He methodically spent his gold, raising his strength, stamina, and agility, bringing all his stats to 20 and leaving himself with 4,600 gold. Nearby, Se-young's shouts about the expense of leveling up skills caught his attention. With a smirk, he decided to level up basic swordsmanship for 1,500 gold and bought some new clothes to replace his tattered gym uniform. At least he could look the part while swinging his sword around. As he was admiring his new look, someone called his name. He turned to see level 3 Yisol asking for advice. This was unexpected. Why was she asking a level 1 player for tips? She smiled warmly, expressing her admiration for his bravery. He peeked at her profile, noting her stats and gold. She was a class healer with a level 1 healing hand skill. To test her honesty, he asked how much gold she had. She replied 800 without hesitation. Curious, he asked if she enjoyed exercising. She admitted she didn't mind walking, leading him to guess her stamina stat was low. He suggested she invest in it, and she agreed, thanking him sincerely. Suddenly, an announcement blared, stating the first floor mission would commence soon. It instructed them to form 3-man parties and warned that incomplete parties would be filled randomly. Panic spread through the crowd like wildfire. Ho-young had expected group missions but was caught off guard by how soon it was happening. Kim Jun-song suggested they reveal their levels for better team formation, and the players quickly started grouping up. Yizil asked Ho-young to join forces, and he agreed. A healer was a valuable ally after all. However, despite having a healer on his side, other players steered clear of joining his party, citing flimsy excuses. A level 1 combat swordsman wasn't exactly an attractive option. Yizil, looking concerned, asked what they should do. Ho-young noticed the level 4 players comfortably settled in their parties and glanced at the remaining players. Just then, the announcement stated that time was up and incomplete parties would be filled randomly. With no time to spare, the mission began, and they were transported to a dense forest. Ho-young and Yisol found themselves stuck with none other than Se-young, who cursed his rotten luck loudly. Facing Se-young's glare, Ho-young wondered if they could find a way to work together. No matter how much they disliked each other, survival was the priority. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for what lay ahead. They had to make it work one way or another. The status window pops up with a mission for our trio. Take out the Kobold tribe in under 12 hours. No pressure, right? From their hiding spot behind some trees, they scope out the tribe's area. Kim Se-young, ever the confident one, is ready to handle this himself and tells our boy Lee Ho-young to stay out of the way. Like that's gonna go smoothly. Our MC tries to keep the peace, reminding him it's a team mission, but this just ticks Se-young off. He accuses Ho-young of riding his coattails and being a backseat driver. Ho-young sighs, thinking it's best not to argue with Mr. Hothead, and agrees to let him take the lead for now. Meanwhile, Chai Yizil is tagging along quietly, already worried about how well this so-called team will work together. She's got a point. As they start moving, Se-young is on a roll, complaining about the bugs swarming around. He's acting like it's the first time he's ever been outside. Ho-young, on the other hand, is trying to keep his cool and thinks they need to get this mission done without causing more drama. He spots some purple fruits on the trees and starts to think. But before he can piece it together, Yizil jumps in, asking if the kobold monster must be strong. He tells her there's a chance it's stronger than a one-horned raccoon, but since they're still level 1, they should be able to handle it. Of course, a reminder to stay on guard in the Tower of the End is always good advice. Yizil nods, trying to take it all in. Then, bam! Out of nowhere, a beastly creature with massive claws, a bulky body, and legs that look like they could kick a boulder into orbit appears. Hoyoung's heart starts doing a drum solo in his chest as he takes in the sight of this level 5 kobold. It's way bigger and scarier than any one-horned raccoon they've come across. The kobold lets out a growl, and they quickly hide behind the trees. Yiziel, clearly freaked out, asks what they should do, noting that this monster looks like it's been hitting the gym way more than any of them. Hoyoung agrees and suggests they scout around to see if there are more kobolds. But, of course, Kim Seong has other ideas. He steps up, all bravado, accusing them of hiding like cowards. This guy really knows how to read a room, doesn't he? Without warning, Seong leaps at the kobold, landing right on top of it and starts throwing punches, loudly proclaiming that it's just a level 5. Hoyoung and Yiziel watch in stunned silence as Seong, grinning like a maniac, goes to town on the kobold. The monster glares at Seong, taking the hits, but Seong keeps on pummeling it, taunting it like he's the main act at a circus. Hoyoung can't believe the nerve of this guy. Yiziel joins the fight, using her healing powers to support Seong, who's clearly enjoying himself. Hoyoung checks their surroundings and, feeling slightly relieved, notes that there are no other kobolds around. He watches Seong's strength at 24, while the kobold's HP slowly ticks down from 92%. Okay, credit where it's due. Seong's living up to his level. But something doesn't add up. Hoyoung wonders why the damage is so low compared to Seong's strength. There has to be another factor here. Suddenly, a status window pops up with a handy guide that says kobolds are passive monsters and won't attack unless provoked. Well, there's a plot twist for you. Seong basically just punched the quiet kid in class. But our MC decides to roll with it, figuring they need to capture a few kobolds for research anyway. He closes the status window, only to spot something surprising. Seong's still going at it, using his level 1 stone fist, shouting for the kobold to die already. But then the kobold dodges, and Seong's fist goes right into a tree, snapping it like a toothpick. The tree falls and hits another kobold. Now, this one's a level 6 and it's not looking happy. Seong, who was so confident a second ago, suddenly looks like he's bitten off more than he can chew. Both kobolds charge at him. He curses, realizing he might be in deep trouble. Looking around for Hoyoung, he finds that our MC has vanished. Classic move, right? He grumbles to himself, assuming Hoyoung ran off. Meanwhile, the kobolds are roaring, ready to pummel Seong. But just then, Yiziel steps in, attacking one of the kobolds from behind. Unfortunately, she trips over a rock and faceplants on the ground. Talk about timing. She tries to get up but finds herself staring at a kobold about to attack. Out of nowhere, a sword flies through the air, stabbing a fruit. Hoyoung, in his level 1 basic swordsmanship glory, jumps into the fray. The fruit pulp splatters on the kobold, and it freezes up, letting out a groan as it dies. A status window pops up in front of Hoyoung, showing he has eliminated the level 6 kobold. Seong, never one to miss an insult, calls him a loser, but Yiziel looks at him with relief, tears in her eyes. Hoyoung takes a moment to reflect. He'd noticed the bugs eating all the other fruits but avoiding these specific ones, and it made him curious. Thanks to the guide's info, he had summoned a poison apple from his inventory. Knowing that kobolds are weak to poison, he holds up the apple, smiling like he just found the cheat code to this level 1 mission. Seong, still struggling with the level 5 kobold, watches as Hoyoung helps Yiziel to her feet. He asks if she's okay, and she thanks him, noting how close it was with the extra kobold being drawn in by the aggro. Hoyoung admits it could have been dangerous if he had been a bit later. Chai Yiziel agrees, thanking him for his help, and he replies he's just glad she's safe. When she asks where he had been, Hoyoung starts to explain, but Seong cuts him off, accusing him of being a freeloader. This guy just doesn't quit. He goes on about how Hoyoung only jumped in at the last second to steal the kill and calls him an unethical leech. Our MC stands there, speechless, wondering what kind of logic this guy is using.